Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast slash car ride video. Today I wanted to share a concept, a phrase that is both applicable to copywriting, life, business, everywhere. And that is a little phrase that I always tell myself. I should get this tattooed on myself. Shoot first, ask questions later. Just pull the fucking trigger. That is the key to so many successes in life, and people are kind of primed to teach you and tell you to do the opposite of that for a lot of reasons. We're trained to practice and learn and do this and that and everything in the world before we actually take action on something. And I think that comes from the fact that we go to school for like 15 years before we join the workforce or learn a useful skill. And that ends up hurting you so badly because so many people, what they do is they sit around and they read books and take courses and do a year of bullshit before they actually start something. And that's a year that you could look back on, and even if you'd been doing something badly, you'd have a year of experience doing it. So whenever I'm sitting there procrastinating, I ask myself, all right, shoot first, ask questions later. What is the thing I could be shooting at right now? What is the thing that I could be working on? And almost invariably, I know what that is. I'm just procrastinating it. I'm just trying to tell myself that if I wait to do this, I'm going to do a better version of it later. A really good example of this is if you're a copywriter and you're like, I've got a sales letter to write. Well, I need to do more market research. I need to go through my swipe file and find some sales letters that I can look at the structure and copy. And that's good. But what if you sat down and you wrote 100 headlines that day? What if you sat down and you rewrote your opening paragraph 20 times? That is inevitably going to get you way further than any amount of research is ever going to. Because then you actually have, wow, that is some crazy glare. Because then what you have is you have a deliverable. You have something that can be put to use. You have something that you can run ads with and test and see if it works. And that's what's actually going to give you the knowledge at the end of the day if what you're doing is good. Getting it out in front of people and seeing how they respond. I could put this video out and 1,000 people could watch it. That's not going to happen quickly, but eventually 1,000 people might watch it and say, this is bullshit. Well, I'm not going to make any more videos like this if that happens. And that is the fundamental way that you're going to learn anything in life, but especially with business, especially with online business. Most successful business owners out there are not MBAs. They didn't go to business school. Yeah, if you go to big corporations and you're at that stage like below the C-suite or in the C-suite maybe, you're going to have a lot of MBAs in there. But if you look at small business owners, now, when I say small business owners, I mean guys who are probably doing $1 million plus a year, which, if you're a beginner, I know you would take $1 million plus a year. These are like the higher end landscaping company guys, the guys that install pools in well-to-do neighborhoods. I guarantee you that they didn't overthink the process of learning how to put in plants or dig a hole for a pool. No, they just went and dug a hole. So that's really what I want you guys to start doing, is ask yourself, all right, shoot first, ask questions later. What's my target? What can I shoot at? And you're gonna have something you can do. Even if you're starting from ground zero and you have no idea what you should be aiming at, I guarantee that if you sit down and you go through, all right, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. If you're starting at ground zero, this is the tip. This is something that I am blatantly stealing from Russell Brunson, the ClickFunnels guy, because it's a really good tip. If you don't know what you want to sell, sit down and figure out who your dream customer is. This sounds like it's a little bit woo-woo, but if you've actually run a business for a while, you're going to realize that one of the biggest issues you have is dealing with your customers. And if you don't like those people, your life is going to be hell. You're going to hate your business, and ultimately you're not going to progress, and you're not going to get better and make money because of that. Because on some level, conscious or not, you're hating your customers. So if you have zero experience, this is what I want you to do. Sit down and write the phrase, who is my dream customer? Who are the customers that I want to be interacting with forever? Forever. Because if you're starting a business, I understand that your first couple businesses are not going to be the thing you do forever, but I think you should act like they are. I think you should put your heart into it. So assuming that you're going to be in business for a long time, you're going to be dealing with a specific type of person for a long time. What is that person? You know this. I know you do. Because that person is more than likely going to be a lot like you. When the Gymshark guys started Gymshark, whether they knew it or not, they were going to be dealing with gym people forever. They were going to be dealing with guys who live and breathe that shit for as long as they're pumping out new stringers and new athletic wear. Maybe that appeals to you, maybe it doesn't. I don't even know if it appealed to them. They probably didn't sit down and ask themselves this when they started Gymshark. But regardless, that's what ended up happening. So sit down and ask yourself, if I start XYZ company, am I going to be happy dealing with XYZ customer forever? Now, if you want that answer to that to be yes, I think you're going to know on some level that you need that customer to be somebody who's at least a little similar to you, who you can relate to on some level and they can relate to you. And in fact, that's almost going to be 100% a necessity, because if they don't relate to you, they're not going to buy your crap. If they don't relate to you and you don't relate to them, you're never going to be able to create advertising that they respond to. You're never going to write copy that, is in with the market's interests. It's not going to happen. So even if you're at ground zero, ask yourself that, who is my dream customer? Who do I want to be working with? Once you figure that out, it's going to become obvious what kind of products and services those people are going to want. Maybe you're really into podcasting, and you're like, all right, I want to work with podcasters. Maybe I want to work with beginner podcasters and just help them get their podcast on iTunes. Maybe I want to work with really high-end professional podcasters and essentially be a producer for them. Because once you start to figure out your niche, using the podcast example, there's a million ways you can productize it. There's a million ways to productize anything. The producer example is great. Say you don't even know how to be an audio engineer, any of that, well, you could bring a different skill to the table. Maybe your skill is your network and your ability to meet people. So if they have a podcast, maybe they need guests. Maybe your thing is that you can find big names. You can find Tim Ferriss, Jordan Harbinger, all of these big podcast dudes, and get them on this other person's podcast. That's your value add. I guarantee if someone's running a big enough podcast to where it makes sense for other big names to join them, they're making enough money that they can pay you a couple grand a month to do this for them. And really, is that a lot of work? Like, no, it's not. Sending out emails and DMs and cold calling until you can get some people to come onto a podcast is not laying bricks. My grandpa had a roofing company in Florida, and my dad always told me stories about how he would take this disgusting tar that they used to make roofs, and he'd have this bucket of hot tar and spread it across the roof. Oh, in Florida, it's 100 degrees out. That's hard work. Nothing you can do online is hard work. Trust me. It's difficult mentally and creatively, but it's not backbreaking. I know you can do it. So sit there and ask yourself, all right, shoot first, ask questions later, what's my target? And then if you can't figure out your target, start down the dream customer route. If you already know your dream customer, start breaking it down into what kind of products and services can I offer them, and get creative with it, like the podcast thing. Think about the fact that there's going to be is that a cop now? Think about the fact that there's going to be a hard, obvious product or service, and then there's going to be something a little more creative, like being a producer. The same idea would work really well for YouTubers, actually. And while we're on that, don't think you need somebody who's already big. A lot of times, people who get really successful doing something like that found someone before they blew up. They found somebody who was on the come up. So don't limit yourself necessarily if you see somebody that you think has potential. Alright guys, thank you for listening to that. If you do anything today, find out what's your target. Meditate on that a little bit. Open up a Google Doc and journal on it, and you're going to figure it out. And once you have your target, there's really no excuse to not be working on it. You can start making progress. Ask yourself every day, what is the most valuable thing I could be doing with this moment? And as long as you're not a ground zero beginner, you're going to have that thing become obvious to you pretty quickly. And it really becomes hard to It really becomes hard to procrastinate once you know that, because you begin to feel so bad that you're not making progress on the thing you know you should be making progress on. Maybe that won't hit you right away, but trust me, if you wait long enough, the regret's going to hit you, and that alone will be motivating enough to drive you to success. Alright guys, have a great rest of your day, and please do something useful for your business right now, even if that's just a matter of figuring out what useful means. Alright guys, see you later.